All right, guys, today's the day. Jake Paul versus Tyrone Woodley, the fight that nobody asked for, but everybody's talking about. Who's going to take this one? I guess we're going to find out. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Fight Talk 2021. Already on episode 17. Today's the day. It is a beautiful Sunday in August, and we got a fight on our hands, a Showtime boxing fight. I am very excited for this one, and I don't know why. I do not know why. So let's talk about this one. We got Jake Paul versus Tyrone Woodley. Who's going to take this one? All right, let's break this down. So we got Tyrone Woodley making his boxing debut, his pro boxing debut. Definitely has some big knockouts. But Jake Paul, on the other hand, 3-0, 3 wins by knockout. But I think the question that everybody's asking is this guy actually a fighter? Right? So we look at this grand scheme of things. We look at boxing as a whole. We look at what's happening in boxing. And I don't think the excitement is there at a level in boxing like it used to be in the past. Definitely it's being overshadowed with the casual fans, which those are the fans that really drive the business. And the casual fans are, I feel like, gravitating a little more to the UFC side. You definitely have big fighters like Canelo Alvarez, like the heavyweights that are on a collision course right now. But you have a lot of politics that get in the way and kind of dwindle the sport of boxing in a sense. So that kind of, and the thing is, it's the same old song all the time, right? Oh, this fight's supposed to happen, and then it doesn't happen. Why? Because of boxing politics. So when you see something new hit the sport, it's interesting, right? And then you get kind of matchups that you're like, oh, okay, this is an interesting matchup. Because a lot of times in boxing, the way things are brought up, the way fighters are brought up, they're brought up in a sense that they pad their records, right? And this is not a to hate on boxing or boxers in any way, but they're like the fights are predictable, right? You go, okay, this is gonna be a good test for the guy. There's a chance he might lose, obviously, but this will be a good chance. And then they bring themselves up, and then they'll be on some collision course with some other guy that there's actually a chance that they may lose, right? But now we're starting to see these like circus fights, these crossover fights, right? The biggest one that kind of set the stage was Mayweather versus McGregor. That was like the Nexus event that started this whole train of crossover fights in this circus show. But a lot of people really like it because you start asking a lot of questions. You get that kind of barbershop talk where you go, okay, well, who's going to win? Why do we think they're going to win? Whatnot. And then you see a guy like Jake Paul come in here. And Jake Paul it's almost like he was an accident, right? The real reason this happened was because of Logan, his brother. Him and his brother fought in an amateur fight. It was like a YouTuber's fight. It was Logan Paul versus KSI. And then once they fought, Eddie Hearn saw, hey, this actually has a pretty big audience. Why don't I give these guys a pro license and have them rematch each other? Because Logan versus KSI ended up in a draw. They said, let's give these guys pro licenses. Let's have them fight for real. And then Jake Paul was on the undercard once again. Jake Paul actually was victorious in that amateur fight. So he had a one amateur fight experience. So they bring him over. He fights another YouTuber. He wins that fight. And now, boom, all of a sudden, I guess him and his brother just fall in love with boxing, right? I don't even want to talk about the Logan Paul versus KSI fight. I could talk about that, the 2-point deduction, whatever. Who cares? It's irrelevant. But you have this event happen, and it paves the way for more things to happen because now we have an audience. We have a market for fights like this. And then it leads the way into fights like Mayweather versus Logan Paul, where It's really about the eyeballs. You know what I mean? You got guys that are fighting on pay-per-view, top level champions like Gervonta Davis, the Charlo brothers, etc., but they're not really driving buys. They're way better fighters, and the product is a much higher product, but it doesn't really matter what the product is. What matters is the clout, what's behind it, the build up, all that kind of stuff. And that's where these guys are so smart in bringing in their following into boxing instead of the opposite way. They're boxing and building a following. They basically cheated the system. So you get fights like Mayweather versus Logan Paul. And we got Andres Fakes. Do you think the fight is rigged? Do I think this fight tonight is rigged? No. I don't think this fight is rigged tonight. I think Tyrone Woodley is too much of like just a G in order to, take a check. I think he's well set off. Obviously this is the biggest paycheck that he's had ever, but yeah, I think he's well off enough that he doesn't need to fix any fight. I think him knocking out Jake Paul will pave the way for maybe another boxing fight or something else where it'll set him up more financially than what it takes for him to just take a dive. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people thought the Askren fight was a dive, and I'll get into that in just a second. But as I was saying, we saw fights like Logan Paul versus Floyd Mayweather. That fight, a lot of people had problems with it. Oh, Mayweather shouldn't be fighting this guy, blah, blah, blah. I was fine with it because it's Floyd Mayweather fighting. You know what I mean? He's fighting a way bigger guy, super athletic, young dude. Guy weighs in at cruiserweight, damn near a heavyweight. And I'm cool with it because I would see Floyd Mayweather fight the mailman. He fought Tenshin Nasukawa. Whatever, Floyd Mayweather could fight 100 more exhibition fights, and I'm going to watch them because I'm a fan of Floyd Mayweather. I want to see him fight. If it's between him fighting the garbage man and him not fighting, I would rather have him fight all the garbage men in the neighborhood, if that makes sense. So we have fights like that. We have fights like Anderson Silva coming over into boxing, and this is one that actually played out quite well. Anderson Silva went and fought at 46 years old. He fought a former world champion in Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., who had over 50 wins as a professional, and beat him. He beat him. He actually kind of schooled him in a way. So I'm looking forward to his next fight. He's going to be fighting Tito Ortiz. And then we also have the return of everybody's least favorite boxer at this point, Oscar De La Hoya. He's going to be fighting Vitor Belfort. Oscar De La Hoya before was hating on, what was it, Mayweather versus McGregor, saying, oh, this is a stain on the sport. And now he's going to be fighting Vitor Belfort. So you see the way things come around. The market is there for these type of shows because people have questions. You know what I mean? You see these MMA guys coming over fighting these boxers and this and that. And you go, okay, who's going to win this? You know what I'm saying? So this fight tonight, who's going to win? If you guys are watching, drop your predictions in the comments. If you have any questions, drop your comments in there as well. And let's break this down. So we got Jake Paul. Jake Paul, everybody after the Ben Askren fight or after the Nate Robinson fight, we're like, okay, we want to see him fight a fighter. We want to see him fight a boxer. This guy can't really call himself a boxer. He knocked out a YouTuber, and then he knocked out a basketball player who was much smaller than him. Right. And also that's kind of the way it's like the, it's the theme of his fighting career so far. He's always picking on guys smaller than him. If you notice, everybody he calls out, no one is at the level of 190 pounds. Right. They may walk around at it, but they're not like 190-pound fighters. It's everybody 170 and under. You know what I'm saying? Even 155ers. He's calling out Gervonta Davis at this point. This guy he's a champion at 130, 135, 140. So it's almost like a bully in a way. He's trying to get the clout and whatnot, but a lot of people are calling for him to fight a legit boxer. And that's another reason why there's a lot of demand to see him fight Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury, I'm super excited to see fight tonight. I watched the whole season of Love Island. I'm a big fan. Him and Molly May. Love it. That's going to be a good one. And I think this is going to be good to see, him be showcased on Showtime for an American audience as well. But back to Jake Paul. After he fought Nate Robinson, they said, okay, let me fight a legit fighter. He's calling out all these UFC guys, but all of these UFC guys that he's calling out are under contract with the UFC. And Dana White is not going to allow them to go fight Jake Paul. No way, no way, no way. Nate Diaz, not happening. Kamaru Usman, not happening. Conor McGregor, not happening. None of these guys are happening. But Ben Askren could happen because Ben Askren retired. So once he retired, he was released from his contract. So Ben Askren, this was the perfect storm. Ben Askren was a fighter, but in a way, he wasn't really a fighter in a sense. He was a wrestler who got away with it competing in a sport which allowed his wrestling to be displayed. He went to that firsthand and was able to win his fights. Now, when he went to the top level of the UFC, he got beat up every single time. He has one win against Robbie Lawler. We all saw what happened. He got his ass whooped basically that whole fight. Then from there, the next one he got kneed in the face. And then against Damian Maia, their ground games offset each other. So it ended up being a kickboxing match, which I called beforehand. That always happens. Becomes a kickboxing match, and his striking was displayed and shown how poor it really was and really how amateurish it was. So Jake Paul sees that, goes, okay, I can fight this guy, especially now after he retires, lets himself go basically, gets hip surgery. You saw the way he weighed in. So it was not only a guy who was the worst striker, who has the credibility as a fighter, or I don't even want to do the air quotes. I mean, he has the credibility of a fighter, right? He was a fighter. I mean, chances are he'll probably kick my ass, but maybe even in boxing, but he has the credibility as a fighter. And now we got him on his worst day. You know, doesn't matter how much boxing he does. Doesn't matter if he goes trains with Freddie Roach, whatnot. We got him. And that kind of gave him that credibility. Now we kind of see, okay, who can I fight next that's going to be just as big of a show? Oh, Tyrone Woodley, we can build this because of the backstage beef or whatever. This guy just got released from his contract. And then when we look at Tyrone Woodley's last few fights, this guy has fought or lost so many fights in a row. You know what I'm saying? This guy has lost 4 fights in a row. And 3 of those fights, he didn't even look like himself at all. So let's look at that for a second. Let's go ahead, share my screen right here. All right. So he was the champion, and he fought Kamaru Usman, lost 5 rounds in a row. He fought Gilbert Burns, lost 5 rounds in a row. He fought Colby Covington, lost 5 rounds in a row. Literally lost 15 rounds in a row. He lost, 75 minutes straight of fighting in a row. Then he fights Vicente Luque, and it wasn't even like he just lost. It's just like he wasn't even fighting. Like he wasn't even there. He's like a shell of himself. That was what was so sad about it. And then when he fights Vicente Luque, he goes out there, and I actually like this fight. Even though he got submitted in the first round, he went out there and he started scrapping. But he just went a little too hard, got clipped with the elbow coming in, and then got hurt, basically was knocked out, and then got choked out. So if I'm Jake Paul, I'm seeing that, and I go, okay, if we get into this little scrap, I'm going to have the size on him. I'm going to have the advantage. I'm going to be able to knock him out. That's what I'm thinking if I'm Jake Paul. But when you look, like if we take this out of this scenario, right, all of this, and we back it up 3 years to Darren Till, we look at Stephen Thompson, we look at Robbie Lawler. So let's look at Robbie Lawler. Let's not even look at these fights in here, right? Let's look at Robbie Lawler. He knocks out the champion in the first round. And it wasn't like he just threw a big right hand and knocked him out. No, the thing that's going to be the factor for him in this fight is his experience. You know what I'm saying? Look at this. When did he start his pro career? He started his pro career in February 2009. What was Jake Paul doing in 2009? Dude, this guy was like 11 or something in 2009. He started his pro career in 2009. And Also, here's the thing. Even though he's an MMA fighter, this guy is training boxing as well. He has boxing coaches. So this guy has been training boxing and hands for over 10 years, 12 years, even before that, I'm sure. But anyways, we come back up to here. Let's look at his championship run, right? Robbie Lawler, the way he knocked out Robbie Lawler was with footwork techniques, the way he stepped over and then cut across to land the right hand. He didn't just throw a random right hand. It wasn't just a bomb. Okay, money, let's kiss it. Boom, I landed it. Wow. So I'm so lucky. No, he set that up, right? So that right there shows you, okay, he has a smart fight IQ. Stephen Thompson is one of the most technical strikers in the game, and he basically had him knocked out in that fight as well. Boom, he caught him with the right hand, had him basically folded over. Somehow this guy still survived. So he was able to catch one of the most technical strikers in the UFC, if not one. I mean, it might be between him and Israel Adesanya as far as technical strikers. And he had him folded up on the ground, basically knocked out. Don't know how he didn't have him knocked out. Then we look at Darren Till. Darren Till was a striker that he baited in against the fence. He baited him. He backed up and then boom, came across with the right hand as he came in. So the timing was on point. That was perfect. So not only does he have boxing experience from back in the day, he has multiple rounds of fighting experience, cardio experience, all sorts of experience. But he has footwork ability IQ, he has timing ability IQ, setup ability IQ, and we want to sit here and think that this guy Jake Paul, because he's been training boxing for like a couple years now, and he's been training really hard, and he's running in Puerto Rico, and he's out there and doing all this stuff and this and that, we're just going to pretend that this guy is going to be able to fight Tyrone Woodley and be able to beat Tyrone Woodley. I think really the only way that Tyrone loses this fight is if he just doesn't show up. You know what I mean? But this is such a big fight for him that he pretty much has to show up, right? This is him now training with Pedro Diaz. He's parrying shots. He's moving around. Some people might be like, okay, he's just throwing those tap shots. That's just him sharpening the tools, right? He doesn't have to throw big shots. We know his big shots are there. We know he has big power, but it's all the little stuff in between. And from what I'm seeing, he's throwing little shots on the inside. He's throwing hooks tight. He's throwing stuff good. And if Jake Paul can't get this guy out of there and the deep water set in, we haven't seen Jake Paul in an actual fight. We've seen him showcase his ability to knock somebody out. Okay, yeah, he knocked out Nate Robinson, cool. Knocked out some YouTuber, sure. And then he knocked out a retired wrestler who got off the couch off of hip surgery. I mean, just his physique in the weigh-in tells you everything you need to know. So we're going to sit here and pretend that this guy's a real fighter now. I mean, at the end of the day, yes, he is a fighter because he's getting in there. All the respect to him, doing all this kind of stuff. There's no disrespect there. But if we're going to say this guy is a legit, top boxer to the point where he's able to compete on the level of Woodley's level's up here. That factor is this guy going to show up? And he looks motivated. He looks like he's going in there. I mean, what do y'all think? Do you think that, I'm kind of off on this? Do you think that, Jake Paul is just bigger than him? Oh, he's bigger than him. He's stronger than him. I don't even know that he's stronger than him. Tyron Woodley weighed in at 189.5, and he still has abs. He's still in shape. That's another thing, too, that we haven't even talked about. The fact that this guy is going into a fight now where he doesn't have to do a weight cut. You know what I mean? So he has the experience in every single level, even the cardio ability, even the timing of fighting ability, the fact that he's been able to fight 5-minute rounds multiple times. Jake Paul's, how long's he fought? 1 round? 2 rounds once? Not even? You know what I'm saying? So this is an 8-round fight. Even for pro boxers that have been doing it a long time, you start off fighting 4 rounds and they get tired in the 4th round. 6 rounds, they're exhausted in the 6th round. Then you work your way to 8 rounds. 8 3-minute rounds, that's 24 minutes of fighting. Tyrone Woodley's fought 25 minutes of fighting several times and been fine. So if this gets into deep waters, if Jake Paul can't put him out, I think Jake Paul's in for a big wake up. I think this time way more than he can chew. And I think the question is, when it comes down to it, is Jake Paul going to be able to come back from this? Right now, before I was always like, well, I don't know who wins. Anything can happen. Man, I think Jake Paul gets seriously beat up tonight. I think he gets beat up tonight. I think at the end of the day, the kid is rich. He doesn't have what it takes to actually get beat up. He's a bully. He's picking on it. He wants to say, oh, I'm starting these foundations for kids against bullies. But he is a bully. All the people that he's picking on, all the fighters he's picking on are smaller than him. Who's he called out that's his size? He knows that he has that advantage, so that's why he does it. So this guy is definitely in for a treat. I think he's going to get beat up. I think once the fight gets really hard for him, he's going to say, okay, I have millions of dollars. Like, what am I doing right now? Right? We haven't seen him get punched in the face. We haven't seen him take those body shots. He's going to look for a way out. And he's going to find that way out. And he's going to either quit on the stool. He's going to get knocked out. Something's going to happen. But he's going to get hurt really bad tonight. And I'm willing to eat crow on that one. What do you guys think? My stream is bugging right now. My StreamYard does this every single time, man. I swear to God. This out of this scenario, right? All of this on that one. What do you guys think? My stream is bugging right now. My StreamYard does this every single time, man. I swear to God. This out of this scenario, right? All of this on that one. What do you guys think? I'm watching it right now on my thing. I can't even. I'm gonna have to end this broadcast. All right, guys, ladies and gentlemen, what do y'all think? Robbie, I'm seeing your comments right here. Let's address Robbie's comments. I don't know if y'all can see me, but my thing's frozen. So, Robbie says, I pray I'm wrong because I hate Jake. Jake probably wins. I think you're wrong, Bob. Tyrone ain't a boxer either. He's in shape, sure. He's a fighter, sure, but I just don't know. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Tyrone surprises me and kills Jake Paul and beats him so bad I'd never get to hear Jake Paul's name again, but I doubt it. But that's the thing, man. Like, yeah, Tyron's not a boxer, but is Jake more a boxer than Tyrone? Like, Jake's been, like, boxing for what? A couple years now? Maybe 3, 4 tops. You know what I mean? Tyron's at least been having a boxing coach for way longer than that. He's been a world champion for way longer than that. These guys, they have boxing coaches, so they're at least somewhat dabbled into the game, at least to the extent of what Jake is into it. So I know it's kind of like, all right, Jake's a fighter now, Jake's a boxer now, but I mean, what's his resume is him beating a basketball player, a YouTuber, and a wrestler who was fighting, coming off surgery, completely out of shape, retired. His I don't know, his credentials aren't really there. And for us to sit here and pretend, okay, Shirley, you can see me, thank God. Shirley, yes, I agree with you. I hope Jake goes down. I wanted to see him get beat up, man. And it's not like I'm just hating on the kid because I like this. I like the way he's kind of exposing the model of boxing and it's showing like, hey, I'm doing these freak shows over here, and I'm gonna be the biggest Showtime pay-per-view. I'm gonna beat Gervonta Davis's pay-per-views. I'm gonna beat the Charlo Brothers pay-per-views. I'm gonna beat every PBC pay-per-view, maybe besides Canelo. So that might have to force boxing to say, hey, this guy's embarrassing us over here, and he's a freaking YouTuber. We need to make these fights. Boom. Ha ha ha. I'm back from the dead. All right, guys.